We're joined by San Diego-based songwriter and musician Kalabrika. Welcome. Hello. This is the first episode of Conversation Corner. Welcome to the very first episode of Conversation Corner. I am here with Kalabrika, who has just finished very first project. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So can you tell us a little bit of the process in getting your first project off the ground with Santa Mona?
So it's October 2023. It's really the project took form over 3 years. And, it's something I didn't expect to reach this kind of level of completeness. Mm-hmm. I'm just, guy with a day job who, likes to write music in my bedroom and just guitar and pen and paper. But the songs that emerged in this project come from a pandemic. I was shut in, and I needed to think about how to harness this kind of rare opportunity to be away from the office, in a space where I can create, and I could write for without much interruption. Mm-hmm. And so I took that opportunity to just write song after song after song, every few days, putting something new down. And it became, in the end, in the heat of the pandemic, in the thick of things, I wrote about 12 songs. And those songs comprise a project called Diaries of Dreamers. Mm. And so all of those songs are anchored by a theme of aspiration, of dreams. Mm-hmm. And so, I had this, these collection of songs, the unified theme, and they just lived as iPhone recordings. And I was, based on my past, as prologue, I just thought, these would just live on my iPhone, and then it wasn't until 3 years later. So we're talking a long incubation, just these songs sitting. Yeah. I was able to, I had the great privilege of working with these talented producers, the Korn brothers, up in LA, in Ojai, specifically, and then suddenly it became something more than just musings, and for a working artist, 3 years to get one song, to get just a few songs out seems like an eternity. But for me, I just felt lucky to have the opportunity to even put them out. So it's 3 years in the making. This project.
Wow. Well, it sounds wonderful. So congratulations on that. Can you tell us a little bit more about your beginnings? How did you get into music?
Oh gosh, yes. It starts we can go amoeba, we can go to the true origins.
Maybe let's start with when you decided that you wanted to go into music.
Well, music, I was lucky to grow up in a family where music was part of our culture. Especially on my dad's side. Like a lot of family get-togethers would have music. There'd be a point in the night, after dinner, or when things got a little quieter, at the end of the night, and family members would go to a piano and we'd sing. I have vivid memories growing up of family doing Beatles songs, over a piano at aunties and uncles' houses. And so there's a culture of music that I grew up in, and there was a notion, even more than that, like a spirit. Music lived in our family as therapy, as a salve. And we do have some professional musicians in my family, but as a whole, a lot of the folks I grew up with, a lot of the people around me would would live as a doctor or as a lawyer or in other fields, but they go to the music as therapy, as a salve, as a relief. And I think seeing that made an impression. Seeing the joy and peace it brought to my older family members, I think had an impression. And so I was drawn. And also connection, right? It's for some people in my family who weren't the most social, or who couldn't charm people with words, they could find a way to reach people with their music. And so I always wanted to do that. And it was in our house growing up, it was a rule that we tried an instrument.
Okay.
It didn't have to be like, you weren't forced to do piano or violin, but you had to do something.
Right.
And for some reason, I don't know what it was. I couldn't tell you a moment where it sparked. I couldn't tell you a moment where the flint made a fire. I don't know why guitar became the instrument, but I chose it at the age of 6. I chose it, but Dad thought I was too young to start at 6, so we waited a few years, and I think it was 11 or 12 I really started playing. Really started to dig into it, and then what really accelerated my pursuit and my growth in music was jazz. So started playing in jazz groups. Started in big band in 7th grade. Like everyone seems to start when it comes to jazz. And then I had the good fortune of being around some very talented, gifted jazz musicians, namely Neil Harris, my guitar teacher for many years. And then it became, he taught me the value of improvisation and invention. And I think as a corollary to jazz improvisation, I started to started to futz around with songwriting, and always wanted to infuse that writing with jazz music. So that's what I grew up with, and that lives in my, that's the jazz was musically was what mothered me. Yeah, I was a child of jazz music, listening intently, and so my path in music was, I would say now, is defined by writing songs, telling stories, while never forgetting the roots of my musical creation, which is jazz. So everything I write, I try to take the lessons of a jazz musician, of building color through the harmony. Taking and embracing chromaticism and dissonance, and using it like, as a brush.
Yeah.
You have your reds, you have your greens and your blues, but then the challenge is, how do you take those very fundamental colors and make it look interesting?
Yeah.
And so that's what guides my music, is to tell stories, but to give people a sound, to infuse some harmonic elements, some melodic elements, even if it's just a single passing chord, something that people don't hear in pop so often.
So would you describe your music as more jazz? How would you describe your music actually?
It's a great question. I mean, what I write is, I think it's I think it's I wanna tell stories like this, like the '70s singer songwriters did. I want a sound that's, I'm as a guitarist, I'm greatly inspired. I'm very much inspired by artists like Pat Metheny and Bill Frisell, guys who knew how to build, who maybe didn't flash, amazing virtuosic chops. I mean, and they, those guys could be good, right? Guys like Wes Montgomery, they have chops, but the music of theirs that inspired me the most is when they could slow it down and focus on melody. So I think my music is very much oriented toward maybe on the slower end of things, slower tempo, open chords, space. It's a music that tries to harness space, and a music that incorporates chromaticism, and music that's, I think, lyrically is united by themes of aspiration, of dreams. There's always an ethereal, I think, there's always an ethereal current in music. And of course, and elements of, I like to also, like I said before, building stories, and I embrace the challenge, kind of these dual challenges. I simultaneously like writing songs that kind of try to get at the heart of a reality, that try to delve into how I feel and to capture that feeling, to package it in a way that other people can respond to. They listen to it and say, I understand what this character is feeling. I understand I can pinpoint a time in my life where I felt this way. And the music is now able to excavate that feeling that I had in the past. Yeah. And, so I like songs that do that. And I also love just to make scenes, to use, like, to find, to write in such a way that I can create vivid scenes. I want people able to listen to music and make a story. Okay. And to their minds are like reels of film. And they can really build stories out of lyrics. Yeah. So I have music, songs that kind of alternate between those two approaches.
Is there like any particular genre that speak to you or that you try to write to? Considering that you have a lot of jazz influence. Yeah. And growing up, you played jazz music. Yes. Does that determine the kind of music you're making now? And if not, right, like what sort of think is speaking to you?
Yeah, I mean, jazz is always like, I'm the kind of person in every dish, if my music were my dish, jazz I'm always using as an element. But the plate itself, the main dish kind of changes. Okay. I think there are some, I love the dynamics of grunge, right? I think what I loved about Nirvana, right? And I think what a lot of others too love is their dynamic range. The verses can be a whisper, right? And then the choruses are just are beautiful madness and chaos and rage. Sometimes a cry for help, but there's nevertheless a whole universe of volume, of dynamics. So that's grunge is something that motivates building huge dynamic range in my music. So there's marrying the jazz with grunge. I used to write a lot more soul infused stuff. I used to love, of course, like everyone in 2012, I was just enthralled by Frank Ocean, right? And so I wanted to write like Frank Ocean, right? And that's kind of been less an element in my music recently. Lately, I've been drawn to more international sounds, like some Greek folk music, flamenco. Now, I want to be clear. I'm no expert in those musics, right? I just they're harmonic aspects. Again, chromatic themes. Harmonic minor. Moving away from your standard, Dorian, Aeolian minor modes. And just delving into some scales outside of your diatonic scale. It's a color. Yeah, it's a color that I've really embraced lately. And
I love that. It presents a new challenge, but also it sounds like you're up for it.
Yeah, and I think honestly, what I would like to do further in the music is actually really be kind of more of a full-time student of that music.
Okay.
I know some of it. I know some of the scales. Again, like your melodic minor scale. I'm trying to build that into my songs more. But there are also some very interesting special scales, like there's the Hidzaz scale, right, which is an Anatolian scale, and I just love to take something that on the face is pop, that sounds like pop, with a twist. It's pop-ish.
Yes.
And the reality is that this whole world offers pop is absorbing. Pop is international. Pop music is a way of being rather than a single sound.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so the pop changes all around the world as it inhales, as it absorbs the traditional music around it. And I wouldn't want that to die. I wouldn't want that spirit to die of taking sounds from hundreds of years and having them live on, having them speak in pop music.
I love that. And so speaking of which, like, what would you say has been the most challenging for you as a musician, but also the most challenging aspect of producing this first body of work? What has been
challenges? Yeah, so in the process, so to go back to the start, right? Like building the songs themselves. I think as a guitarist. So for me, I have so many. I call them orphan harmonies, orphan melodies. Thousands of little tidbits of harmonies and melodies that don't have lyrics to them. And so lyrics are the hardest thing because, for me, if I don't have, I can't fake an emotion. I can't fake if I want to write music that speaks to my life, right? That's a diary entry, so to speak. If I want to write a song that's a diary entry, I can't make up that diary entry. I need to live. I'm not a good actor, I guess. I need. I'm very tied to my reality in some sense when I'm writing, and sometimes, I can't find a feeling that I can write. The chords and the harmony, the melody comes a lot easier than the lyrics. So for me, it's always a challenge to put lyrics together that express that are honest.
Okay.
You know, that aren't just contrived. Sometimes I feel maybe I'm a little too picky the way I write. I think I can benefit sometimes from just a simultaneous, spontaneous writing. You know, I think I could benefit from that in some respects. So I do really much orient towards stories. I love to build, the same way a comic book writer builds, storyboard by storyboard. I really like to have each storyboard infused, with as much color and detail as possible. So that's always a challenge. And then beyond that, just taking taking something that's comprised of guitar and voice, very simple, cut and, very simple, unadorned, and then building production out of it, right? I'm not a drummer, I'm not a bass player. But at the same time, even if I don't have those skills, I think it is my duty for this project to be able to envision what their parts are. And so it was a challenge, but I think once I sat with the Korn brothers, with talented producers who knew what they were doing, and once I can have people have sounding boards, that made it a lot easier. And taking something that you only hear the guitar, you only hear the voice, but then the challenge is to compose, to build the other instruments, to build the sound without necessarily having an intimate knowledge of those instruments, right? I can't sit down and play a good piano line, but the fun challenge, I certainly can hear it.
Absolutely.
If you let me try, I can hear it, right? And so communicating that to other people can be a challenge, but it's great fun.
A rewarding one. It's the way you put that.
It's so rewarding, to see something that only lived as voice and guitar, to see it kind of, to see a sound, right? To see a drum, to have something, a full-born song in your mind that's living in your mind. It's playing. It's living in there. Yet it's not, because it's not out in the. It's not out in the world. It's not in the world yet. But
you're creating it as you go.
But then to get together with with talented people, to collaborate and to bring it out.
Right, and it speaks to the
great
power
feeling
of like collaboration and art, and
absolutely,
and the fact that there are other people who have the other elements that you might be looking for, that you need to help make your idea
exactly,
and to bring it to life. And I guess part of what I'm also interested in is you talk a little bit about the difficulty in sort of being an actor, if you will, right? That's not something you can do or that you're comfortable doing.
I'm trying.
You're trying to develop that skill.
Yeah.
So how does that impact your storytelling, or does it impact your storytelling?
Yeah. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, I just want to be honest about what I write. I want the feeling, I want the story to be something that I at least have experience part. And something that's can be potentially universal. I'm not going to write, about drug addiction. I'm not going to write about imprisonment. I'm not going to write about being a father, because it's not my, it's a little too far from my reality. And I don't want to fake it, because those experiences, there's such a depth to them, right? There's such a profundity that I don't want to be cheap. You know, when I don't want to tell a story. I don't want to write a story about being a father when I can't even. You know, there's some experiences I feel you have to live in order to write. You know, particularly those kinds of stories I just mentioned, right? Those living as those kinds of characters. So I try to tap into something that I've experienced either in the past or that I've kind of gotten a taste of, like youth, you know, youth and chaos, aspiration, and so when I write, that's I try not to act. It's fair. And if I'm going to write something that's not my experience, I tell it more as with a certain in a topical. I take a topical approach to, you know. Okay. Again, that was my other. I get into my feels. That's approach one, and then approach two is I make a landscape, right? Yeah. Without trying to delve into the emotion in such a way that's not honest. You know, some of the tracks you're going to hear, they're I'm telling a fun story. Right. I'm telling a fun story as a narrator with a removedness. Right. That's
they're not personal.
They're not personally, but they're fun. To me, it's like cinema. I don't have those skills. I don't have a boom mic, you know. Don't have a camera, don't have a boom mic, don't have handsome actor with a well-chiseled face. I don't have those things, but I have pen and paper, so I can. That's as close as I can get right now to making a movie, is with pen and paper, to have people see the movie that I'm envisioning in my head.
That's a good place to start. It's a great place to start, right? Because most movies start on paper. So there you go.
I'm on my way.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that end, right? So you're creating these scenes and having fun with them. Yeah. Where do you draw inspiration from to write your music, to be the kind of musician?
I love what inspires me is something that's images and kind of spirits, characters that can come from the past. Things, you know, mythology. I've been looking into lately, trying to incorporate, you know, because those stories, there's a reason they live today, because they have staying power, because no one can necessarily relate to a, you know, 15-headed monster, but you can relate to struggle. You can relate to jealousy. You can relate to heroism, and it's in your darkest hours. So I love tapping into mythology. I love cityscapes, and being here in San Diego, you know, downtown, just walking around and trying to write about things I would see in a city, or I love taking trains, you know, and trains take you to some interesting places, and I like to try to take like little image, you know, a passing image, you know, even on the train, just looking out, I see, you know, maybe you see like an old car that's rusted next to the rails, and you see backyards are so interesting. I love being on a train, looking out and seeing a backyard, and there's a lot that's communicated in a backyard. You can really see a history, a personal history in the backyard. So I'm tied to these kind of urban landscapes, urban environments, families, uh, old old stories, and again, yeah, images, cultures that have lived here a while. I think I would like my art to be an open sky in the sense that it's open to change, and it's aspirational. It's forever. It's boldly changing. And I want an artistry that relies on experimentation, exploration, and with that comes some risk taking, and with risk taking comes the possibility that you fall flat on your face, and it doesn't sound like you envision. But I wanna try,
Yeah.
and then an open sky kind of, when you look into the sky on any given day, and let's say it's a cloudy day,
Yeah.
you see that the clouds over time, they change. And so I like a music that can be interpreted in different ways, and that can surprise people.
Mm-hmm.
So I like an artistry that's also predicated on surprise. Jazz is the sound of surprise, and I want to keep that spirit in my weird mashup of genres. I want to keep a spirit of surprise.
I love that.
So I want people to be listening maybe in the first minute, and they think it's one thing, and then maybe it shifts on a
different plane.
on a moment to a different plane.
I love that. Is there a song that has surprised you, or holds that surprise for you that you're pulling into the work that you create?
Something, not something I've made.
No. If there was one song
That's
to
a good
describe-
question. This is not scripted.
Yeah, no.
I was not ready. For
Nothing
this
about
question.
this is scripted, by the way. So you're watching this live, direct.
So what's sound? Yeah, that sound of surprise. Particular music. There's Resolution by John Coltrane. And
One of your favorites?
one of my favorite songs, if not my favorite song ever, because of its strong melody. It has it's a sturdy melody, It's a sturdy girl, that melody. But that has surprise. That song has an amazing surprising moment. It just knocks you off your chair, especially the first time you listen to it. It starts with a bass line, and that bass line feels like it goes on forever. You're lulled. You're lulled into this bass line, and you're lulled, but in the back of your head there's also an anxiety. And then suddenly, just as you're about to, you're about to settle into your chair, and then, Coltrane comes in, the saxophone comes in, and it's like a call. It's a hither. It's a come hither, right? The saxophone is a come hither moment.
Yeah.
And it just knocks
Calls
you out
into the music. Absolutely.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
It calls you into the music.
Yeah.
And so that song is, oh gosh, I can say so many things about this song.
That's a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The boat
a
cruise?
boat. It has to be.
We're setting sail?
Yeah, let's set sail. Let's set sail here. So for the people, for the fans,
Yeah.
for our audience, any new things you're working on or anything you could share while we're here?
Yeah, so I wrote a whole bunch of songs when I was between jobs, and that's something entirely different. And I'm thinking of an interesting format to do that.
Ooh.
It's maybe a little more stripped down
Okay.
than these kind of fully produced tracks.
Okay.
And honestly, I still have Santa Mona. Right, the songs that make up Santa Mona. I mean, there's like less than half of the songs from that period. So, yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be interesting to see how it goes. I would love to release those songs maybe as singles here and there, like nice little Friday night presents for people to little trinkets for people to admire, digest, what have you. And then I'm thinking something a little different. It's gonna come up in this some experimentation, and it's gonna be, I think, a little more stripped down, going back to acoustic guitar. But strip it down while at the same time add some surprises, because whatever I do, I want surprise. I want an element of surprise.
Okay, well, we'll stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
You know who to call, you know where to go. I'll be here when you're ready. Yes, and so that has been our time with the wonderful Kalabrika. We have some more music coming your way. We have a music video for Santa Mona, so stay tuned for that. So anything you want to say before we close here?
So I appreciate you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
I mean, you got a hell of a YouTube channel, do beautiful work, and
Thank you.
it's a privilege to sit with you and talk about what I do.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
This has been wonderful. Thank you for being our first guest. Can we get an applause?
And thank you all for
Yes,
tuning in.
thank you for tuning in. If you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I will include a link to Santa Mona music video in the description. Look out for that. That'll be on the more artistic channel that I have. So more to come. There's so much more happening here. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you later. Thank you. Bye. And that